Okay, so there's a lot of unanswered questions in Lost, and we want to know the answer. So all we can do now is wait for Damon and Carlton to tell us the answers, or we can go back to the actual show and do what Doc Jensen was accused of not doing enough, which is to look at the actual show and see what the answers are. There are a lot of parallels, many, many parallels going on in the show, but there are some things that don't seem to be there for the right reason. They don't seem to be properly paralleled, and my contention is that they actually are paralleled, and there are uh, correlatives um, in the actual show. And I think one of these things is this girl Annie, who Ben was in love with as a child. She has no last name that we know of. So who is she? It's not like, I mean, they could resolve the story. Ben could meet her again later on. They could use a different actress. Um, so why didn't they why didn't they answer this question about Annie? It wasn't like a thing like, they couldn't get the actor back, like for some of these other things that, like I said about Libby and stuff. Um, but I don't think that's the answer for Libby either. I think Libby was definitely part of the conspiracy. She was a plant on 815, just like Alana and some of her goons were plants on 316. Now, if she was a plant on 815, why would we assume that Jacob, knowing so far ahead, would only put one plant on the plane? Maybe there are other people in the know. You remember that Jacob didn't visit Juliet, at least not as a child. She visited Sawyer and Kate as children. She visited the other ones much later on. She visited Alana. He already knew her, so we know that Jacob might visit at a later time, might visit once, or he might visit twice. Now, if he visits twice, seems like the second time, it's kind of like The Godfather. He does a favor for you earlier on, and then later on, you have to do a favor for him, and he comes to you. And one of the things that he could offer, like he offered Dogen, is this savior, this saving of the life of someone who is well loved by this character. So I think, um, knowing that some of the characters were on the island, like Miles when he was a baby, and Charlotte when she was young, although there's some weird thing about the timeline there. Um, so let me put it like this: the most likely case is that, well, let's say for example that this girl Annie that Ben was in love with as a child, no last name. Let's say that she was Kate. Um, and Kate lived on the island, which is why she's so good at tracking. She knows, well, I don't know, no way about you, but why she's so good at tracking. Her father was in the army. Who knows when he came to the island? He may have come to the island from the army. Maybe some of the army people didn't die, and some of them became others. Kate's dad might be another, just as Jack's dad might be another, had been another. And if this is true, when it came out, we were thinking, well, how could that be? Because Ben would remember her. But Ben doesn't remember his childhood because he was taken to the temple by Kate Sawyer, actually, but under Kate's insistence. So, if Kate was Annie, what would that mean? Well, it would mean that there was all kinds of people in the show, like Ben, who knew all sorts of things or had some information and never expressed it. Not during the whole show, because once the Man in Black was dead, there was probably only another, what are we going to call it, 20 minutes of airtime left, and they're not going to spend their time rounding up all the answers to the questions at that point because it's not very dramatic. And also, I think just as each episode was something that we had to unravel, the whole thing is something that we have to unravel, peel off the layers of the onion bit by bit. So the implication that Kate is Annie also implies that this conspiracy is much wider and that there could be all kinds of people involved. Libby, Locke's mom, especially the last generation who told these stories to the next generation to get them to do certain things, believe certain things, ask certain questions, have certain problems, so that these problems and questions could be resolved. by their experiences on the island. Um, yeah, I think Kate is Annie, and Kate was most likely approached when her childhood friend Tom was shot, and Jacob may have offered her um, Jacob may have offered her the chance for her friend Tom to live. Uh, on this thinking, it's also possible that Kate never killed her father. That was a